You're listening to Sox in the Basement, a production of the Broadcast Basement Limited, where every show is 30 minutes of good and comes from a basement bar on the south side of Chicago. Pull up a stool, pour a cold one, and join us right now for Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found and always at soxinthebasement.com.
Sox in the Basement, a little different today.
You sound a little different.
Well, I'm not in Chicago. I'm in Minnesota. I'll explain that in a moment. And Ed is running everything, and I'm doing my half of the show from my phone, sitting in the backyard of an Airbnb right now, on a little bit of a trip, little boys trip, but it's not all fun and games. I'll get into it in a moment. But this is brought to you, of course, by Cork Carry at the Park, 30 Princeton, Shadow the Ballpark, great food, amazing staff, the indoor-outdoor skating. It's finally going to get beautiful outside. I'm looking forward to a summer at the ballpark. And one of the things I want to talk about today is going to be my expectations for this team based upon what they've done in the last month. And it shouldn't just be an expectation of, well, we're just going to be better than the Rockies. Because the Rockies saw what the White Sox did last year, and they were like, hold my beer. We could be worse. And that should not be your expectation this summer. It should be Will Venable's expectation. So we're going to talk about that. But Cork Carry at the Park, see everything they have to offer at corkandcarry.com. All right. So I'm out in Minnesota, land of Twins fans.
You're not out there to just try and land a bunch of Twins fans, are you?
No. Not at all. Not at all. I am wearing nothing but White Sox stuff. It's really funny how I do that. I can't help myself coming to Minnesota and Sox gear. One of my best friends in the whole world, a guy by the name of Joe Signorelli, passed a couple of months ago. And it was very unexpected. He's godfather to my firstborn. That's why we're out here. It's all our group is a very close-knit group of guys. Live all over the country. And we're all sharing a house this weekend. We got in early and we're doing a celebration of life on Saturday for him. And so that's why we're here. And I did exactly what used to drive Joe nuts. I packed like nothing but White Sox stuff. And I think I've mentioned this on the show before about him. And all Twins fans, they have a complex about White Sox fans. They do. We don't believe that they do. You know, we have a thing with them. Like there was that whole time before we won the World Series, where it just felt like they always got the better of us.
The Piranhas.
Right. And they had a World Series, you know, with that Kirby Puckett team in was it 90 or 91? Like they had one in the late 80s. So
87, I think, yeah.
Yeah. So my generation felt like they were the ones that always won. We won nothing. But they haven't won a thing since then. And the thing that burned my buddy so much, and something I considered wearing to the event on Saturday, and I thought better about it, I was going to wear my AJ Pierzynski White Sox World Series replica jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the World Series '05 patch on it. Because that jersey drove him nuts.
Because that was AJ. I mean, he was the Twins, and then he goes out to San Francisco for 1 year before he gets kicked out of San Francisco and comes to the White Sox. And I could see where that would have chapped Joe's hide a little bit.
He was their guy. And then he comes to the White Sox and wins a World Series with a team that they hate and that they have a complex with. And anytime I would wear that jersey, it drove him nuts. He would just make a face. He would be aggravated by it. Whenever I visited and came out here to Minnesota, to Minneapolis, I wore that jersey sometimes 2 days in a row. Like I wore it to annoy people, and it annoyed his Twin fan friends and everything else like that. I left it on the couch when I was packing. I can't believe I forgot it. But everything else I have is White Sox stuff. And that's what I'm wearing out here because this fan base, it irks them. And I get great pleasure. And what's funny is they've been far more successful as a franchise than we have collectively over 25 years. But they hate the fact that we got a World Series. They didn't the last 25 years. That drives them.
See, that's when we're talking about trying to find hope in a White Sox season. That's something to hold on to as a White Sox fan, to sit there and say, yeah, but there's still a fandom out there that thinks that we have it so good.
Yeah.
And then they were going to get bought by the Ishbia brothers, and they're like, nah, we're going to go to the White Sox too. So that had to sting a little bit, especially because nobody seems to want to buy the Twins right now.
Yeah. So we always think that we're the bottom of everything, right? It's been a rough couple of years. it's been a rough existence as a White Sox fan. Like there are far more bad moments than good moments in my White Sox family. But we just drive Twins fans nuts. I just wanted to make sure I told people that because as I got here, I realized we do drive them insane. I pulled into town in a Sox shirt. I went out in a Sox shirt last night, wearing another Sox shirt today. It's giving nothing but White Sox shirts. I love the dirty looks, the daggers from the eyes, and just the anger. And it's given me some joy in a very rough weekend because I got to do something that I hate doing. Ed. I really do. I have to do something I hate doing, and that's like I always get asked to speak at things. Like that's a thing because I speak all the time. This is what I do for a living. I was on the radio for years. People know that I can speak, so it's like immediately like something happens and people are like, "Chris, will you say a few words?" And it's fun at like weddings, you know. It's fun at like events. It is not fun at funerals, and you can't turn the family down, right? Like if the family asks, like the way that it went was, I got asked, "Would you speak at Joe's thing?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll do it, but like so and so, like one of my buddies, Lewis, I was like, Lewis really wants to talk. You should have him talk. Like I'm trying to beg off him, and they're like, oh no, he can talk, but we really want you to speak. And I'm sitting here today, and I'm still trying to work out what I'm going to say. This is the hardest thing. Like you could be a public speaker for decades. This is the hard stuff. So I'm not looking forward to it anymore whatsoever. That's what we're out here for. The boys had a couple, guys when they live together are just interesting creatures when it's just guys in a house, especially when they're friends, right? Like we could have like painted the town red last night, and everybody's like, "Well, why don't we smoke a couple stogies and get a couple pizzas and drink a couple bottles of bourbon and tell some stories?" And then the way that men eat, like, have you ever been in a firehouse? Pretty much what it was like today. Like one guy's in the kitchen, like making like gourmet food, and everything we're eating is like high calorie, like soak up the alcohol stuff. And everybody's just kind of sitting around, like drinking energy drinks. And we're all in our late 40s, and you would think you were in a frat house today. That's what it looks like. I feel bad for the guy that owns the Airbnb because this place is going to stink after 4 days.
You guys should really be crushing up Lipitor and snorting it. Try and offset what you're eating.
Right, exactly. Like the married guys, their wives keep calling to check on them, and I keep laughing like nothing's happening there. It's a bunch of old men who are drinking, telling stories, and eating bad food. That's all they want to do. They want to lay around in their boxes on the couch until noon. Like I'm the only one dressed right now.
And I thank you outside. For it. We're not doing video. We're not doing video for this episode because you're on the road, but we do thank you for getting dressed because nobody needs the imagery of you and your boxers drinking bourbon, smoking a cigar.
Right. So let's talk about Matt Thaiss. I know I brought that up at the beginning of last show. I had to do a quick edit because he got traded after we had talked, but I didn't get your take on it. My take was there's a crunch with the catching position. Okay, you feel like you got to move on. It's not really important what you get back. It would have been nice to get something better, though. And I don't know, did they rush the idea of we got to get Corey Lee up here? Could they have sat there for another week and tried to get a better deal? Because the guy that they brought in is just a body who, at 25 years old, doesn't do anything that special.
No, he can run a little bit. 119 stolen bases in the minors. But he fits the Ryan Fuller. I assume it's a Ryan Fuller archetype at this point because if you look, he's a low strikeout, high walk, high on base percentage kind of a guy, right? That's his profile. He's not a power hitter. So you're basically trading a backup catcher for a guy who maybe tops out as a fourth outfielder, but seems to have an offensive mannerism about him that fits what they want to do. It's just, they're chasing more Chase Mydroths, not to make a pun there, but they're not going to find 9 or 10 Chase Mydroths to put on a team,
My only issue with chasing Chase Mydroths, which is a great phrase, and it sounds like a movie on Lifetime. My only issue with that is you got to find guys that are going to hit the ball at the ballpark. Like I'm all for the on base percentage thing, and it's kind of cool how they're getting their offense, where it's not a team that goes up there and is trying to be a 3-2 outcome team, and it's not a team that is just looking for the home run. I mean, it's been one of the more frustrating things over the last 10 years that you're in any game situation, they're all up there swinging for the fences because they're trying to hit a 3-run home run when they're down by 6, and they can't figure out how to manufacture a run. And at least that has changed a lot under Will Venable and Ryan Fuller. and what is there for them. It's not like they, the thing is they also lack home run talent on this team. They really should have more guys that put the ball out of the ballpark. But they've at least adjusted to the flaws in their roster. The thing is, if you're chasing Chase Vineroths, are you going to go out and buy home run hitters? I mean, I'm okay with chasing Chase Vineroths. I'm okay with like trying to find guys that are on base and get base hits and move around and can have some speed and things like that. They can do all the little things, but you need a couple of boppers. And if you're not developing any of those, then you're gonna have to pay for them. And is Jerry gonna pay for them? And when will he pay? That's my only concern.
Jerry may never open the door for a high-priced free agent, but if you need an exterior window, a door, a patio door, a storm door on your house, and you need it without high-pressure sales, you need it from Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest. They are not coming over to your house, sitting in your kitchen, using your bathroom. You're going to their showroom where you can see full-sized examples. All their glass designs are on display, so you know what it looks like right there in person. Forget looking at pictures in a book. The owners are right there in the showroom with you. They are out on the job sites along with their own employees. All Window and Door Superstore installers are not farmed out to subcontractors. They work for the store. 40 years in Oak Forest since 1985. All major brands custom made, no stock items. It's always a perfect fit. 1/2 block east of 159th and Ridgeland at 6280 159th Street or at windowdooroakforest.com. Well, and if you're going to pay for them, are you going to end up with Adam Dunn? Are you going to end up with Adam LaRoche? Are you going to end up with...
Well, those don't fit. Those don't fit the plan, though. That's the thing. You've got
right.
A couple of 3 true outcome guys sitting there in the middle of a bunch of chasing eye drops, then your team has no identity. And then you're sitting there going, like, it just depends on where the batting order falls in the 5th inning as to whether or not you get the right guy up there at the right time. I don't want that.
No, and I understand, like you said, I understand the idea of having a team that, generally speaking, will have a high on-base percentage and maybe not hit as many home runs or not have, 2 or 3 really major, 40 home run threats in the middle of the lineup. And you have a park that plays pretty well for guys with Midland power to be able to get it out more often than not. But you still, right now, your team leader in home runs is Miguel Vargas, which I'm increasingly believing is something that he is going to continue to be able to do to lead the team in homers, especially if Luis Robert Jr. either leaves or continues to have his struggles. Andrew Benintendi is right behind him at 6 and in fewer games because he's been hurt. So if he stays on the field, he might repeat his 20 home runs from last year. If you're going to go that route and have guys that are capable of hitting 20, I mean, is it possible to develop, say, 6 players who fit that mold, who might hit 20 home runs, but have a good on-base percentage and be able to do that all around? I think that's arguably harder than sitting there saying, okay, we're going to find some Chase Meidroth-like guys. We're going to find guys that can get on, and then we're going to pay for 1 or 2 guys that tend to profile more towards power, especially, like you said, because they're just not sitting there. And you wonder if the reason why Tim Elko didn't get as much of a look is because he is that kind of 3 true outcome guy where the ball either goes out of the ballpark, he hits a hard single somewhere, and he doesn't walk though. He was a handful of walks to something like 40 Ks in the minors. So you just look at that, and I think the tolerance for high strikeout, low walk, low on base percentage guys is leaving this team. And so I don't know if you're going to be able to pay for free agents that fit that mold, because if somebody gets on base a lot and has a lot of power, that's a premium batter. I mean, that's an all-star,
Well, what's funny
they're
is
not out there.
What's funny is the prototype is almost what Miguel Vargas has been over the last 30 days or so. Like that seems to be exactly what they want, which is crazy that I'm saying that out loud after how I felt about Vargas all this time. But you have to admit it. He's getting on base. He can get the ball out of the ballpark. Like if you extrapolate his numbers of what he did over the last 30 days or so out over a whole season, if you really maintain this, you got a 25 to 30 home run hitter that is going to get on base. And then if you got a couple of those guys, you could have all the Chase Meidroths you want that you throw around him. But can they find more guys like that? Can they develop him? Is he for real? And is this going to be sustainable all season long? What he's been doing? Because it's always funny. Like he has like a couple of bad days. I go, okay, here it is. It's all falling apart now. And then he goes out and hits 2 home runs. And so I'm like, oh, it might be real. And it's really funny. Like I knew when I was editing last week's show, like when I was listening through it, putting the video together, like that's the difference between doing radio and doing podcasting. Podcasting, I have to listen to myself after I've recorded it, and I will criticize myself just like everybody at home. I got a message from last week's show, and I saw the preview in my email box, and I laughed, and I was like, this guy said exactly what I said about myself when I was putting the show together. Because remember, we were talking about why do they stick around with Andrew Vaughn so long, and why don't they make a move? And as I re-listened to it, I yelled at myself, going, well, if they would have done the same thing with Miguel Vargas, we would have given up on him too. I said the same thing to myself. I was like, you missed the point on that one, Chris. And I got called out by one of the listeners, and he's exactly right. The only difference is Andrew Vaughn had 5 years and 2,500 at bats. You knew what he was. Miguel Vargas,
well, that's just it.
You can make the argument, had far less, and they had far less time with him. So they should have known that Vaughn was no good going into the season. Vargas, you can make the argument, they just had not had as much time with him as they had with Vaughn. So I don't know if it's exactly the same. But to get back to the whole idea behind Vargas, if he's real, right, and that's the type of player they want to put 3 of those on this team. They got to find them, though. And we talked about it before. It's so hard to not only develop prospects like for them, but it's really hard to trade for hitters. I mean, look at the guys that are still blocked in the Orioles organization. The White Sox would love to get their hands on, and they just won't give them up. And they don't even have room for them. Like Kobe Mayo just comes up anytime somebody's injured, goes back down, and publicly grouses about it. Like, what else do I have to do in AAA? They can't find any room for me. Just trade me somewhere. And the Orioles won't do it. So it's very hard to find guys. So that's why the Vargas thing is really the most interesting and intriguing story of the year for the White Sox. Because you could go out and get all the Chase Mindroths you want, but you need a few of those guys. And if they were actually right in identifying a player, knowing what had to be changed, getting through to him and changing him, it would say so much about the possibility to go out and do it again. Because that's the prototype right there. That's the guy that fits what Venable wants to do.
Yeah, and and the guy in the minors that arguably fits that mold. Now he's got a lot of strikeouts. Kyle Teal does because he had an awful run there. But when he's right, and he's been more right than not, very recently, where his walk to strikeouts over the last 30 days is 13-19. So it was that stretch where, some 30 odd strikeouts come into play. But when he's doing that, he does have power. He does have the on-base percentage. His on-base percentage over the last 30 days is .439. So you sit there and you go, okay, well, with that glut of catchers, all right, and Matt Thaiss goes, and it makes sense that he gets traded. Drew Baker, again, the guy that they bring in, looks like he fits this mold. He just doesn't have any power, but he's maybe a fast guy. So, you're looking at him as a spare outfielder. Although, again, I don't know why Josh Palacios is getting so much play, but they clearly see something in him. But at the end of the day, you kind of wonder, okay, Kyle Teal fits that mold. Chase Mindroth was obviously a guy they traded for. Miguel Vargas is a guy they traded for. Colson Montgomery was supposed to be that guy, although he's still not performing, although he's been much better since he got back from Arizona. Yeah, I really need him. I need him to show me something.
Yeah. It's only been a week or two with him, and I know he's had some success, but I need a lot more, because when he comes up the next time, he's got to stick. One of the things that I was fortunate to be able to do a couple of years back, and if you've been listening for a long time, you know this. I helped a friend of mine start a Pirates podcast called Bucks in the Basement, because he listened to my Sox one. He's like, God, I love the doing in Pittsburgh. And he writes about the Pirates. And I was like, I can help you with that. So I went on as his co-host for like a couple of years until I was like, okay, I'm kind of tired of talking about the Pirates. I'm not a Pirates fan, kind of like them, but like I'd rather just talk about the White Sox. So now he does it with somebody else. But I followed that team in their rebuild, and man, they would make the mistake of bringing up somebody who wasn't ready, sending him down, getting like a month of good results, saying we fixed it, bringing him back up, he would fail again, and they were ruining their prospects doing that. And they need to just keep Colson down there and make sure that they are overly confident that he'll stick before they bring him up. Do not bring him up. I don't get excited over the last couple of weeks. Give him the whole year. Plan on him for 26. That's what they have to do.
Yeah, well, and the last 15 days, 243, 349 on base percentage, 835 OPS. It's good, but it's not great. It's not showing me that he's ready. 243 at Charlotte is not a great thing. If there's a reason why Brian Ramos isn't up, he also is another guy who fits the bill. Over his last 15 days, he's got more walks than strikeouts. He's got a 395 on base percentage. And in that time period, 2 home runs. Over the last 30 days, he's got 4 home runs and very similar, in terms of walk to strikeout. But he's only hitting 258,
well,
which tells me he's going to struggle.
Find power with it. They have to find power with that because that's the biggest thing. Right now, it's very easy to turn him into the Chase Vigroff. They want him to be more like the Miguel Vargas. They want that also at third base while they have Vargas stand at first. Like that's what I think is what they would love to have. He's got to find that. Like I love that kid's attitude. I loved him last year.
Yeah.
Not because of his play. I just love the fact that he's like that guy that walks in the room and is like, I'm the best baseball player. And he's clearly not the best baseball player, right? Like he's not their best prospect. He's fringy right now. You don't know if he's even going to get another chance in the majors and when that's going to happen. But he believes it. So if you could fix that guy, if he actually could figure it out, the pressure of the majors would not be a problem for him. And that's why I find him very intriguing. I constantly go down and take a look at what he's doing because at some point, if they could figure out like how to unlock him, like they got Vargas going, and him over a third with that attitude and that confidence. I mean, that stuff. If you could bottle it, you could sell it for millions. So he has that one thing. He's got to get the skills to go along with the confidence.
Yeah, and that becomes an interesting infield for the future too. If you're sitting there saying, okay, we're going to start building around that with Ramos, Mydroth, Lenyn Sosa, and Miguel Vargas, and Sosa being the outlier, the one guy that strikes out way more than he walks and has too much swing and miss in him, but he also puts the ball in play a lot and has been, getting a lot of hits off of that. Ramos is the opposite. He's getting on base. He takes more walks than he strikes out over the last 30 days, but he's only hitting 234, which means that he's either hitting into really rotten luck, and I don't have his, expected batting average in front of me, or he's, putting a lot of fly balls to the warning track, and 4 of them have gone out. So he's got some power, but it's, again, in Charlotte, you feel like that should be a massive number if he's just swinging for the fences, and 4 home runs in 30 days isn't exactly massive. So you're right. They do need to find
right now he looks like a less than 10 home run 250 hitting third baseman, and you can't have that.
No, that doesn't work.
He has to take another step. Like if you're looking at this team internally, like if you sat there and said, okay, internally, if we just had to go with the players we have down in the minor leagues, I would think somewhere Chris Getz's or one of these other guys in this front office, like they have like somebody's got a notebook, like written in pencil, like the possible infield if certain guys would take the next step in development. And I think that thing that's written in pencil, if it's realistic, is Miguel Vargas standing at first base. The hope that you are able to get Ramos with that attitude, if you can just get him to start putting the ball out and make him less of a Mydroth and more of a Vargas. And then if Montgomery works out, he would end up short. Mydroth would be a second. And Sosa, like you said, he doesn't fit the prototype, but he is one of the few guys. We talked about it all off season. He's one of the few guys that gives you hope for production at the plate that they already had. I'll say it for the 100th time. Go back and look at how he goes from level to level. Every time he gets to a level, he struggles. And then when he's given consistent at-bats, he excels. And then he struggles at the next level. And the problem that Sosa had when they brought him to the majors is that Pedro Grifol would not give that kid an at-bats. And then Sizemore gave him some at the end of the season last year. And when he finally started getting them here, he's performed. If you sit there and play with stats online, it is fun to look at Lenyn Sosa because you can sit there and say, okay, when you give him a set spot in the order where he knows where he's hitting and he's playing almost every day, look at the performance. Not the first couple of weeks. You gotta let him get going. But if you get him going, he's like somebody who takes a long time on the ramp before he takes off. But once he takes off, then you just gotta leave him in there. And he's showing that now at the major league level. He's not. I don't think he was ever in their plans. I remember in the offseason, we had James Fox on. He normally would fill in when I was on a trip, but we just decided to try this today, and I don't know how it's working out, but we tried it. But he came out and he would say, I don't think he's in the plans. I don't even know if he's going to make the team. So that's why I'm always intrigued by him and bring him up because I think he's one of those guys that has never been penciled into that notebook. But I think he's in the corner of that notebook when they're trying to figure out their infield in case one of these other guys doesn't work out.
Well, yeah, and when you look at what he's done this year, and you look at what other people on the team are doing, Lenyn Sosa's leading the team in hits. He's got 52 hits, and 10 of those are doubles. 4 of those are home runs. So he's got some all-around numbers. It's just his 43 strikeouts to 5 walks is pretty bad. But a 280 average, that's just behind Chase Meidroth for the team lead.
And the funniest thing is I'm standing in a backyard in an Airbnb in Minnesota trying to talk about what I think Lenyn Sosa's been doing this year. And like, that's the thing with him. Like, I kind of knew that he was going to be up at the top, and you're like, oh yeah, he's their best hitter so far.
Yeah. Just casually without anybody really noticing. Lenyn Sosa has more hits than, anybody else on the team. 4 more than Miguel Vargas, who's been scorching hot since he bought into the adjustment. So
Vargas is the best hitter on the team if we take away the beginning of the season. And if you're hopeful and you're looking at the world in rosy colored glasses and you're like, everything's wonderful, there's rainbows, sunshine, the clowns don't kill children, they're happy, they make balloons. If you're looking at the world in that way, then Miguel Vargas is the best hitter because you believe it's going to continue, which I really, really want. We get so many comments that get sent to us where either people are rubbing it in that he's doing well, or they think that I'm upset about it. I'm not upset about it. How many times have I said I really hope I'm wrong about this guy?
Yeah.
He finally got added to a team in our fantasy league.
Yeah, finally by a guy who held on to Andrew Vaughn even longer than the White Sox did, but that's still
that's true.
Yeah, but it's still it's one of those where, but he started showing up. He started showing up on lists of hey, look at this guy. And I saw a clip from the MLB Network where they were breaking it down. Like, is this the biggest in-season change anybody's ever seen? And, the adjustment was that he's raising his hands up, but you're right. One of the things that the MLB Network pointed out was Miguel Vargas's pedigree and his history, and the fact that he was raking in the minor leagues meant that there had to be something in there somewhere with him. It was just a matter of the right coaching staff figuring it out, or him having the confidence. We've talked about confidence. We've talked about pressure and some of the mental aspect of the game. Whatever it is, Miguel Vargas is and should be, by all rights, the best hitter on the team. And getting back to that comment that, did the White Sox give up on Andrew Vaughn too early, or did they hold on to him too long? The fact is that the White Sox didn't give Andrew Vaughn enough time in the minors to build up a track record where he should get the benefit of the doubt. And he never did it in the majors to where he should get the benefit of the doubt. Miguel Vargas had that minor league pedigree that showed this is what the guy is capable of. We just got to figure it out. And Lenyn Sosa is the same thing, like you said. Here's a guy that if you look at his stats and look at his trends in the minor leagues, struggle, rake. Well, he doesn't go anywhere else from here. So he struggled. Now he's raking. And if you've got those two guys, if they are for real, and Sosa's, like I said, I'll say it again, Sosa's only big flaw that you can see is he's got to cut down on the strikeouts, but that could come in time. That's an adjustment that he can make at the plate. If you've got those two guys and Chase Meidroth, you've got 3 members of an infield, however you want to line them up. But you've got 3 guys on an infield that you can sit there and go, okay, there's something here,
Right. And then you have Caro, who's got that pedigree in the minors. You see him as he goes from level to level. He's going to figure it out. Teal,
he's struggling. He'll come up.
Right. But Teal has shown that in the minors. Like, you got to have faith in these guys when they get to the majors and they have a hard time for a little while, because you have to go back and look at their minor league numbers and you have to see, is he the kind of person that when he goes to a level, he struggles a little bit and then figures it out? And if the answer is yes, this is just the next level. This is the hardest level. So it's going to take the longest amount of time.
And on that note, it's time for the Sox Nerd, who is brought to you as always by the Village of Lamont. Want to experience it downtown with real history, great eats and drinks, and green spaces filled with adventures? Well, then visit the Village of Lamont. Shop, dine, drink, explore, and check out all they have to offer at lamontdowntown.com. Nerd, what do you got?
Here's what I've learned since last we chatted. The turnaround of Miguel Vargas has been so stunning, one on-air personality called it possibly the most dramatic in-season adjustment he's seen in the MLB Network era. To recap, in his first 64 games, which is a decent sample size, Vargas hit a paltry 117 with only 2 homers and an anemic 406 OPS. In addition, he was striking out 26% of the time. In his next 31 games, after adjusting his hands on the bat, Vargas has flashed the form that made him a prized prospect in the vaunted Dodgers farm system. Since April 23rd, Vargas has slashed .316, .382, and .607 with 8 homers and 20 RBIs. In that time frame, he won an award. A Sox player was actually recognized for excellence. Vargas was named AL Player of the Week for the week of May 12th to 18. It was the Sox' first such award since Luis Robert Jr. won it 2 years ago. The White Sox recorded their 8th win ever against the New York Mets on Wednesday. The only franchise the Sox have beaten fewer times is Arizona at 7. By the way, the team the Sox have beaten the most is Minnesota/Washington at 1,186. Andrew Benintendi had an interesting homer on Wednesday. Benny's dinger came in his 3rd at-bat of the game against a reliever, which is still a rarity even in this era of the opener and bulk workers. Benintendi's blast was the first by a Sox player in at least his 3rd at-bat against a reliever in a game since Romy Gonzalez in 2022. Prior to that, it was Avisail Garcia in 2018. The last Sox player to homer twice in a season in a situation like this was Tim Hewlett in 1986. The Sox record is 3 by Al Smith in 1961. And a Sox Nerd happy trails to catcher Matt Thaiss, for whom I will always have a soft spot in my heart because of his 2 pickoffs at third base. Thaiss, who was traded to Tampa for a minor leaguer on Tuesday, is the only Sox backstop in the last 53 years with multiple pickoffs at third base and one of only 9 since 1912 to do it. I swear to God, this is the last time you'll hear about this. And one more. I won't let go of the Pope. 2025 isn't the first time the Sox have been connected to the Pope. On their 1914 World Tour, members of the Sox traveling party, including owner Charles Comiskey, had an audience with Pope Pius X on February 11th at the Vatican. According to reports of the day, the Pope addressed the gathering and blessed the children of Sox manager Nixie Callahan on the way out the door. Before I get to my zinger, I remind you that gems like these and long-form pieces are on my blog, which you can link to at soxinthebasement.com. By the way, I am posting a daily White Sox quick list on my blog, and I am still updating Sox birthdays on my Twitter account. My zinger? In honor of the 20th anniversary of the World Champions, I'm going to zing frequently about that team, throwing out some gems you may not know about the 2005 Sox. The pitcher who topped White Sox farmhands with 163 strikeouts in 2005 was Gio Gonzalez. The lefty amassed those strikeouts in Class A and then was part of the Aaron Rowan trade for Jim Thome. He was later reacquired for Freddie Garcia and then traded again, this time to Oakland, for Nick Swisher. Gio finally pitched for the Sox in 2020. That's it, Chris. More than you probably wanted to know about turnarounds, homers off tiring relievers, and, of course, the Pope.
I noticed something the other day. That 18 wins last time I looked at how many they had, and 106 games to go. And every time I look at the standings, basically when you see their last 10, like their last 10 is 4-6, let's say. Generally, they're 4-6 in the last 10. They'll win a series, they'll lose 2 series. Like, I mean, that's basically what they are right now. If they just continue on that trend, they should end up with about 60 wins this year. If they just maintain what they've done in the last month, they should end up right at around 60 wins. There should be no less than that, right? It should be a question all year long: will they lose 100, or will they actually break past that barrier and lose less than 100? What I would love to see them do is continue to develop. It's not about how you started the season; it's how you ended. Does your manager keep the team positive when they have nothing really to play for? Or do they fall apart like they did last year? Are they winning games in September and ruining people's outlooks? Are they ruining teams' chances of getting to the playoffs because they're still playing at a high level? Do they finish stronger than how they started? That's what I want to see this year. Like, the baseline is coming in right around 100 losses. And if they could do better than that, I'm a happy White Sox fan. That's what I want to see this year.
And it's going to come together smoothly.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on soxinthebasement.com.